We want to welcome in Jay Powell, first-round pick out of Mississippi State, a decade in MLB. He joins us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. When was the first time that you can remember you've played against or faced Ricky Henderson, Jay Powell?
Well, it's good to be here, Bo. I'm going to probably say it was 1996. It was my rookie year. And I'm trying to remember who Ricky was with then. I can't remember if he was still in the American League or the National League. But I faced him in 96, and then, I think I faced him since, I looked it up the other day. I faced him about 4 times in my career, which was kind of odd because, I usually get a lot of the right-handed hitters. So I really thought I'd faced him more than that. But I faced him in 96, 97, and then I think a couple times in 2001 when he was with the Padres at that point.
Okay, you're right. He was with the Padres in 96, 97, and then he was back with them in 2001.
Yep.
So the greatest leadoff hitter of all time could do so many different things. What was it like to face him knowing how talented he was?
There's certain hitters that gave me problems that really wasn't as good, as talented as Ricky Henderson. For some reason, I had pretty good success against him, and I never minded facing him. The thing about a guy like Ricky Henderson, though, is, with these, quote, leadoff guys, hey, just, make them hit their way on, that kind of stuff. You couldn't do that with Ricky Henderson because he could get out of the park. So you just couldn't just go in there and groove him a fastball thinking I'm going to get ahead and I just can't walk him. Ricky was a really good hitter, obviously, and just a freak show of an athlete. But he just, beyond all that, he brought so much to the game of baseball, just on the field, off the field. The stories, of course, are legendary. But as far as the talent-wise, he was by far the best leadoff hitter to ever play the game.
Yet so you played against great players, you were a phenomenal player. When y'all make it to MLB, good grief, everybody's good. So
that's right.
But when you look back and hear about some of the, things that he accomplished, Jay, like 1,406 stolen bases, 3,055 hits, 2,295 runs. As somebody who played at the highest level and won a World Series, do you just sit back and shake your head?
There's 2 records, I think, that will never be broken in baseball. Cal Ripken's consecutive game streak will never be broken, and Ricky Henderson's stolen base record will never be broken. Those 2 records, I feel like, are untouchable. Now, you get into Cy Young and some of those, crazy 600 wins and all that. But, when you look at modern-day, quote, baseball, that's incredible. It's absolutely incredible to steal that many bases. I saw a stat on him the other day that when he was with the Yankees, Don Mattingly drove him in 78 times in 1 year. That's obviously Mattingly had a great year, but for a guy to get on base and be driven in by one person 78 times, that tells you how many runs he was scoring.
It's incredible.
It's some of these things that he did was crazy. But yeah, that's why he's the greatest leadoff hitter of all time, and it's very deserving.
First-round pick out of Mississippi State, World Series champ Jay Powell on the Out of Bounds show, talking Ricky Henderson, my favorite player of all time, even over Raffy and Will, which is saying something. Okay, so walk us through how much pressure a guy like that puts on a pitcher once he gets on first base, knowing what he can do, Jay?
Well, I tell people all the time, I was extremely blessed that I had about 4 Gold Glove catchers over the course of my career. So that helps a lot. But you've got to understand that he's wanting to steal that base. He's wanting to steal the base. So it affects pitch selection. It affects, you got to be quick to the plate. You've got to hold the ball. You've got to do things that will disrupt his timing and that kind of stuff. And even if you do all that perfectly, he's still going to probably steal the base. So going into it as a pitcher, it definitely affects you as a pitcher as far as what you're doing and trying to get that hitter out, because you can't get preoccupied with him at first base. But with him over there, you knew it was kind of a matter of time, not necessarily when, because he had the green light all the time. And as good of, you see guys that are really fast that are okay base runners. Ricky Henderson was incredibly fast, and he was a smart base runner. And that's when you get that, you get a guy that stole almost 800 bases.
Okay, you just hit on something, Jay Powell. It was his craft. Like you mentioned, there's dudes that could fly, but didn't understand the technical piece and how smart he was. It was a craft for him. I mean, he was damn good at reading pitchers and situationally in baseball, right?
Yep. And it's kind of like the receiver going against that defensive back, that one-on-one deal. It's the same thing with those great base runners and a catcher. And it's just like a catcher and a great base runner. I mean, I saw Charles Johnson throw out Deion Sanders one time at about 10 feet. And, I mean, you could tell CJ was jacked up. Well, it becomes kind of one-on-one competition. So these great base runners, there's a little bit of that swagger, obviously, and that confidence that they have. Like, you can't throw me out just like you can't cover me. And Ricky had all that. And I mean, that's just, he was incredible with doing what he did. And I think when you wrap up his skills, his knowledge of being able to read pitchers, being able to get good jumps, being able to get good leads, making good turns. I mean, I guarantee you he stole third, probably a third of his stolen bases are probably third base.
Right.
I mean, so he just had that knack, and the skill set was unreal. But he was such a smart player.
When you're as talented as Ricky Henderson and you're that big of a threat on base, how much does that elevate the guys hitting behind him? Because the pitcher's going crazy in his mind about what to do.
It's a double-edged sword, because some of those, they love him getting on base because, they love the fact of Ricky's going to be on base a lot. And I'm starting to talk like Ricky. Ricky's going to steal bases. But, Ricky's going to be on base a lot, and you're going to be able to drive a bunch of runs in. Flip side of that is some of those guys are like, hey, dude, you're out there jockeying around second base, trying to steal bags. Let me hit some. So that's when, you look at some of the guys that hit behind him in his career. I guarantee you, if you go back and look, they're going to be, whether it's kind of the prototypical two-hole guy, I mean, they're just a good, solid, kind of smart baseball players, because you've got to have a guy behind you also that understands what you're trying to do, because it ain't like high school baseball where, even high school we've got away from it, where a lot of our guys are even on their own, but he's on his own. So the hitter don't know he's going. So, he's going to have to take a pitch that he may want to hit to let him try to steal the bag. So, it's a lot that goes into it with those guys hitting behind him, too.
Jay Powell, first-round pick out of Mississippi State, a decade in MLB, World Series champ with the Marlins. He joins us on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line, sharing baseball stories and Ricky Henderson stories. I guess you played against what's crazy? We talk about, Jay, like sometimes like Phil Mickelson's not appreciated as much as he should be because Tiger was so dominant. I kind of feel that way with Tim Raines. I know one was in the AL and one was in the NL for a while, and then obviously Ricky bounced around a good bit. But I grew up loving both of them. I got to watch Raines play all the time, Jay, because of WGN and TBS, and he was playing the Braves and the Cubs with the Expos. I don't even remember the timeline. Did you ever play against Tim Raines, Jay?
Yep. Played against him. Trying to think, maybe the White Sox for a little bit. But I played against Tim Raines, and it's Ricky. Obviously, look, Ricky was a more talented player and put up better numbers than Tim Raines. But Tim Raines is a borderline. He's a borderline Hall of Famer.
Sure.
If he's not in, I mean, so he was a great player, but you're right, he was overshadowed because Ricky overshadowed everybody. I mean, that personality and that persona was just bigger than life, and that's what a lot of guys loved about him, man. His teammates loved him. And the guys that played against him really, he was the first one I remember really pimping home runs.
Yeah.
He would hit it and he would kind of flip the bat and pop his shirt a little bit.
Yeah.
And really, you didn't hear a lot of pitchers complaining about. It's just because you knew who he was, and it was like he says, just Ricky being Ricky. I mean, he was a different bird from that persona. And when you had that, you overshadowed a lot of great ones. I mean, yeah, Tim Raines was a really good one. Kenny Lofton was another one that, was a really, really good leadoff hitter. I mean, you get some really good ones that are, but when you got the Mount Rushmore, the king up there, I mean, it's hard to get any attention.
Man, I loved Kenny Lofton in the 90s. Now, I still had to root for the Braves, but that dude with the Indians, goodness.
Yep.
I'm looking here for our listeners. So this is what Jay's talking about. Ricky is number one all-time stolen bases at 1,406. Okay, to give you an idea, Tim Raines is fifth, which is still amazing, at 808. And Kenny Lofton is 15th with 622 stolen bases. So it's just wow. All right, I wanted so you played. You mentioned Ricky Henderson pimping home runs, which I thought was awesome when he did it. And you're a pitcher, you may not have thought it, but so help me here. When I was looking at all the tributes from all the great players that he played with, and you get this because you played with some players that you were like, man, these guys came to the ballpark to win every day. My takeaway the last 48 hours of Dave Stewart and Don Mattingly and all these guys posting different things about him was that Ricky Henderson played damn near every game, Jay. And he took talk about the physical toll on his body still in second and third as much as he did and head first slides, but that this guy came to the ballpark to win and beat you every single day. And how valuable that is in the dugout, Jay.
Yep, 100%. And not only that, but I think Ricky really, really loved playing the game of baseball. And, I mean, his last year, he played for an independent team up somewhere in Newark or something just because he wanted to play, And when you really loved coming to the ballpark and playing the game, that goes a long way because it's a long season. But as far as being a competitor, I mean, he wanted to win every day, and he didn't want to come out of that lineup. He wanted to play every day, and he was going to play his way. And it wasn't like he was a power hitting first baseman. I mean, this dude was crashing into walls. He's diving in at second base, sliding. He was hard on his body. But you looked at him. I mean, I remember meeting him one time walking out of Shea Stadium, and I said, "This dude looks like a tailback." Like, he was probably he was 40 years old or something probably. But I'm like, I mean, he's got like no body fat and. I said he looked like a tailback. Like he's just the way he's built. He was just such an athlete.
Do I have time? Yeah, I want to switch gears with you here for just a second now that we got you. Jay Powell, first-round pick out of Mississippi State, a decade Major League Baseball, visiting with us on the Farm Bureau Insurance guest line. All right, so we got to make a transition here because I want to talk about Jake Mangum. He's going to be on the 40-man roster. Okay, for the Tampa Bay Rays, coming out of the chute in January and February. We had him on a few weeks ago. He had an unbelievable year with the Durham Bulls and was player of the year and so on. Now, the game is I feel like everybody's about the home run and so on and so forth. As you look at, all about him, college, and what he's done in minor league baseball. Handicap it for him as far as, it looks like he's close. What do you think needs to happen here over the next few months, Jay?
Jay, of course, is a friend of mine, and I see him a lot and talk to him a lot. I've told Jake all along, and this is what is so messed up with our game, and I hate it, this part of it. But Jake Mangum helps you win baseball games. He will make you a better team. He will help you win games. He may steal a base one day. He may dive for a fly ball in center field and save you 2 runs. he's going to help you win games. There's no way these gurus with their iPads can measure that. And he's got to get with the right organization that can appreciate what he does. And there's no bigger fan and nobody pulling more for him. And I'm hoping that situation is now with the Rays. But that part, that part of the game, they can't put numbers on it. So these guys don't know what to do. And when you're dealing with, and I don't want to go down a rabbit hole, but when you got folks running the game that never played Little League ball or whatever, it's just what you end up with. You end up with a product that's not as good as it used to be. And it's just, I know that's a whole nother show, but Jake, that's been his big deal is the folks, I think, really don't appreciate what Jake brings to the team. And the guys that play with him, the baseball guys that see him, his teammates, they know this dude wins games for you. Like, you'll win games because of Jake Mangum being on your team.
Absolutely.
And it's hard for them to put a number on that. And it's like, well, but, so I'm hoping he gets a shot. I don't know why he wouldn't at this point. To me, he's well deserving. He's more than deserving. But it reminds me. Remember Jody Hurst? Jody.
God, what a player!
Was stuck in AAA with the Tigers for years, and Sparky Henderson was going out signing Rob Deere and all these guys, and Jody just could not get a break. And so you got to be good to make it to the big leagues, no question. But you got to have a little break. And it's like Dennis Cook told me one time: when you get there, you slam that door shut. You ain't going back.
Right.
But you got to have somebody's got to give you that break. And I'm hoping from Jake's standpoint, it comes this year because he's, to me, at worst case, he's a great fourth or fifth outfielder. But I think he's deserved a shot to play, man, and see what he can do.
I agree with you. Hey, Jay Powell, thank you so much
for
your time
man.
today. That was an absolute blast. Merry Christmas to you and your family. Maybe in a couple of weeks we can talk. I got to go, but maybe we can talk Jim Ellis and
I love to.
And his impact on you in Mississippi State baseball. Thanks,
Absolutely.
Jay.
Absolutely. Thanks, bud.
Jay Powell on the Out of Bounds show, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and driven by Rick's Pro Truck, 3 locations, RPT Commercial, Gluckstadt, Madison County, and Flowood. ricksprotruck.com. That was great. Jay Powell faced Ricky Henderson, played against Ricky Henderson, played against great players, and could frame it up, his impact on the game. And I love that 4-minute clip on Jake Mangum. Jake Mangum will start on the 40-man roster for the Tampa Bay Rays in just a few weeks. I think he said he's going down there late January or early February, so it'll be right around the corner. We're live in the Bank Plus studio. This is ESPN 105.9 The Zone.